Is a coronavirus payback coming? Texas approves a school curriculum with Bible references, and will Elon Musk buy MSNBC? If he does, I'll never get used to calling it MSX. That and more on this week's America Uncovered headlines. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. Congratulations, everyone. You made it through both Thanksgiving and Black Friday unscathed. Or, well, alive, anyway. I'd say I hope your Thanksgiving was a happy one, but given how strong emotions can get surrounding politics these days, and the fact we just had an election, I'll say I hope it was a non-combative one. There needs to be a new amendment that makes it so that elections don't take place so close to the holidays, as if traveling to see your family wasn't stressful enough. And it was especially stressful this year as the administrator of the TSA said this will be the busiest Thanksgiving ever in terms of air travel, which means America saw a record for the number of travelers as well as a record for the number of political arguments started with people's uncles. I'm just grateful that I get along so well with my family, specifically my twin brothers, China Uncensored's Chris Chappell, Gamers Unbeaten Chris Chappell, and China Unscripted's Chris Chappell. Sadly, our other twin brother, Dave Chappell, couldn't make it. He's the black sheep of the family. Speaking of Thanksgiving, President Biden, being the lame duck president he is, pardoned 2 turkeys from Minnesota. Though this is a holiday tradition for both Democrat and Republican presidents, I'm sure plenty of Republican uncles over Thanksgiving said that it's proof Democrats are soft on crime. And plenty of Democrat nieces said the turkeys are just victims of institutionalized white meat supremacy. The Supreme Court declined to hear an appeal from R.J. Reynolds and other tobacco companies over a lower court ruling that stated a set of FDA-required health warnings did not violate their First Amendment rights. In 2020, the FDA finalized a new rule that would require the top half of all cigarette packs and the top 20% of all cigarette advertisements to contain warnings about the product, including graphic images of the dangers of smoking. These include birth defects and health risks, such as tumors. No word if it will also include graphic pictures of one of the greatest risks of smoking, being forced to talk to annoying strangers who also stepped outside for a cigarette. I smoke because I have social anxiety, and I have social anxiety because I smoke. It's a vicious cycle. The FDA hasn't enforced this rule since it was immediately challenged in court. But with the Supreme Court declining to hear the appeal, it looks like these graphic warning labels could be on cigarette packs and ads very soon. And while we're at it, can we also put warning labels over the next most dangerous things sold at gas stations? Specifically the hot dogs. Put a graphic picture of what eating these will do to your plumbing. That will go a long way towards making America healthy again. You're welcome, RFK Jr. By a vote of 8-7, the Texas State Board of Education approved a kindergarten through 5th grade school curriculum containing learning materials that include biblical references. That makes sense, considering how low standards have fallen for graduation and how many students are getting into prestigious colleges without the ability to read an entire book. The best shot at getting Americans a decent education is prayer. The Board of Education has 11 Republicans and 4 Democrats, so 3 Republicans sided with the Democrats in rejecting this curriculum. Who knew the Bible in schools could be a bipartisan issue? The learning materials, called Blue Bonnet Learning, are free and optional for school districts to use, but the state is offering $60 per student to any district that chooses to use them. Because in this economy, the quickest way to make people religious isn't threats of fiery eternal damnation, it's with promises of cold hard cash. The curriculum refers to other faiths, but Texas State Board of Education member Maria Perez Diaz sees a Christian bias in the material. She explains, had it not been for the Christian bias in this content, I do really find value in how a lot of these lessons were laid out. As you can imagine, this is likely to set up a massive legal battle. Trying to implement Blue Bonnet Learning to teach elementary school kids about the Bible is ridiculous, especially considering they could just use the God Bless the USA Bible, the only Bible endorsed by former and future President Donald Trump. Scroll through the frequently asked questions section and kids can learn valuable lessons such as, is this Bible also officially endorsed by Lee Greenwood? You bet it is. Is this a good gift? Absolutely. What if my Bible has sticky pages? We don't know why that question is still on there either. Speaking of Trump, Special Counsel Jack Smith filed motions to dismiss both federal cases against Trump, which includes the January 6th case and the classified documents case. One motion has been approved, with the judge dismissing the January 6th case against Trump. Smith, who looks like me sent back in time to warn myself of the dangers of secondhand smoke, has said he's planning to step down as special counsel before Trump takes office, so this move isn't entirely unexpected. With this Smith gone, this leaves me as the last Agent Smith standing. Speaking of Trump, again, get used to hearing that for the next 4 years, Trump has made a slew of selections for his cabinet, my personal favorite being former president and CEO of World Wrestling Entertainment Linda McMahon as Education Secretary. There is a major problem with this. If you're going to appoint someone from WWE, Hulk Hogan was right there, who said, "Come on, brother, you gave her a position and you didn't nominate your old pal, the Hulkster, for Secretary of Running Wild on you." Trump also nominated Dr. Bhattacharya as director of the National Institutes of Health. Bhattacharya is a Stanford University health researcher, but left-leaning media is focusing more on his criticisms of COVID mandates, such as saying they could be harmful to children, which is crazy. I mean, it's not like we're hearing anything about kids born during lockdowns facing developmental delays or struggling in schools, assuming you ignore every story about it like the media does. Bhattacharya co-authored the Great Barrington Declaration, which expressed concern over COVID policies and called for a more focused approach to the pandemic. He wanted to achieve herd immunity more quickly by allowing those with a low risk to not have such strict mandates placed on them, while simultaneously protecting those who had a higher risk. Of course, the NIH and the NIAID under Dr. Anthony Fauci, being practitioners of science, knew the best course of action was to debate the Great Barrington Declaration's hypotheses with robust research experiments, and just kidding. Then NIH Director Francis Collins and Fauci emailed each other to conspire a devastating takedown of the declaration. And soon after, Twitter put Bhattacharya's tweets on a blacklist to keep them from trending. Because again, always trust the science, but not like that. And now Bhattacharya could be in charge of the organization that called him fringe and attacked him, proving once again the law of karma is just as real as the law of gravity. However, just because Trump nominated these people doesn't mean they'll wind up getting the positions. Just look at Matt Gaetz, who Trump nominated to be Attorney General. Gaetz withdrew from the nomination after already resigning from Congress. Gaetz said his nomination had become a distraction. He also says despite being eligible to return to Congress next year, he won't. I guess politics just got old for him, like other things. Allegedly. Now, Trump's nominee for Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and his nominee for Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, could wind up with a similar fate, as both will face grilling in Congress. Hegseth has been accused of sexually assaulting a woman in 2017. He denies these allegations. And Gabbard has been accused of being a Russian asset after comments criticizing the U.S. support of Ukraine in their war with Russia. However, despite how the media often makes it sound, she has not supported Russia invading and taking over Ukraine. What she did was say that Russia had legitimate security concerns over the idea of Ukraine joining NATO, which Russia views as an anti-Russia alliance, and voiced concerns over U.S.-funded biolabs in Ukraine, which if breached, she said would release and spread deadly pathogens to the world. Her statements about the biolabs have been compared to a Russia-backed conspiracy theory about bioweapons labs in Ukraine, such as when ABC said that Gabbard's claims closely mirror a false decade-old Russian conspiracy theory that Washington is secretly funding the development of biological weapons in former Soviet countries, which has been repeatedly debunked by the U.S. and international organizations. But Gabbard never mentioned any bioweapons, and the biolabs she mentioned do exist. And anyway, it's not like lab-related conspiracies ever turned out to be true. Still, Gabbard will need to be approved by Congress, and she may not have enough votes to do so, as some GOP senators are skeptical of her. This is also likely the reason Gaetz stepped down. Sure, his upcoming Ethics Committee report could have been a distraction, but he simply made too many enemies within the Republican Party and probably wouldn't have had enough votes to be approved. So now he's making personalized videos on Cameo for $525 each. Oh, this guy is willing to say and do anything high-paying donors tell him to. Well, I guess he has tons of experience with that, given his time in Congress. Speaking of political shills, MSNBC. MSNBC's parent company, Comcast, confirmed it would be spinning off and possibly renaming several of its cable channels, including the news network. NBC Universal chairman Mark Lazarus expressed uncertainty over whether or not the channel would change locations or its identity. The New York Post reports staffers are in a panic over this, which is strange. Given their political leanings, you'd think they'd be more open-minded about something undergoing a transition. Donald Trump Jr. shared a tweet saying MSNBC is for sale and that Elon Musk could do the funniest thing ever, leading to Musk asking how much it would cost, which is just like the beginning of how Twitter became X. If Musk bought MSNBC, I wonder, would he keep the X theme going? Like how his aerospace company is called SpaceX, Twitter is now just called X, and Grimes is his ex-girlfriend. So will Musk buy MSNBC and turn it into a pro-Trump propaganda station like many are worried he might? Probably not, mostly because MSNBC actually isn't for sale. So don't worry, we won't get a new propaganda station. We'll just have the same number of propaganda news stations we've always had, pumping out fear 24/7 and making Thanksgiving tables battlegrounds for years to come. And before YouTube kicks you to a random video, check out the latest episode of my other show, Deep Thoughts While Gaming, where I explore controversial topics by hiding them in gaming content, so hopefully YouTube won't notice. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.